A note now about the story we're about to tell you about. It does contain some graphic sexual language. BC Conservative MLA Bruce Banman shocked the BC legislature on Wednesday, standing up and reading excerpts from a book he says is available in BC schools. The Abbotsford South MLA says he's concerned about books available to children, which he calls sexually explicit and disturbing. We have chosen to show you the moment as it took place in the legislature. And again, a warning, the language in the clip you are about to see is sexually graphic.
Mr. Speaker, I would ask that the House brace themselves for the following words from one such book called Eleanor Park, and I quote, "I know you're a slut, you smell like cum, nothing but a bitch in heat."
Member,
end quote.
Member, please do not use that kind of language.
I apologize, Mr. Speaker, and I actually would retract those words. Mr. Speaker, this language is deeply disturbing. As a grandfather, it shakes me to the core when I imagine that children could be exposed to this deeply disturbing, degrading language in British Columbia Public Schools libraries.
Well, Bruce Banman did retract the statement. The BC Conservative Party posted the interaction on their social media feeds, with many applauding the party for its action. We wanted to take a closer look at the book, what was said, the controversy the incident has sparked, and the political change in the legislature this moment signaled. John Hernandez has more.
High schools in BC offer stacks of young adult books to teens, including this one, referenced by MLA Bruce Banman. It's called Eleanor Park and was written about 10 years ago.
The book is really about feeling completely alone and isolated. This book actually won the Prince Award, which is a pretty big deal.
This librarian gave me a crash course on what the novel is about.
It's actually this very tender story of two ostracized teenagers who are bullied, who experience racism, one of them.
Ozerny says the author of this love story doesn't shy away from strong language, which emerges in select chapters when its characters are subjected to verbal abuse.
A lot of the intense language in the book is actually what resonates with teenagers. When the book first came out, teen readers were saying, hey, this sounds intense, but this is actually indicative of some of the stuff that we hear at school.
The excerpt read by Banman in the legislature actually contains quotes from two different parts of the book, the words said by the lead character's bullying stepfather.
The passage is really not representative of the tone or feeling of the book. Books like Eleanor Park, even though they can have some strong language, they can have some content that parents can absolutely object to, but these books teach us empathy and compassion and point of view.
Have I read the entire book? No, I have read parts of it, but I have not read the entire book.
The Conservative MLA contends this book is available to kids as young as 11 years old in Abbotsford.
It is in the library and they have access to it.
CBC News reached out to the Abbotsford School District but did not receive a response. Still, Ozerny says the book is meant for teenagers and typically assigned in consultation with parents.
Just by having these books on the shelf with this stronger language does not mean we're simply handing them out willy-nilly.
This isn't the first time that this book has become political. It's been the subject of some book banning campaigns in American school districts. And while Banman says he isn't calling for a ban, some political experts say his rhetoric isn't too far off.
I think it's more likely a kind of a culture war sort of effort to try to suggest that this government is endorsing making that kind of material available to 11-year-olds.
This political scientist says the move is likely meant to distance the BC Conservative Party from BC United and target voters who oppose sexual orientation and gender identity policy in schools.
The heart of Conservative voters in BC is up for grabs, and these are identifiable kinds of policies that you can try to use to swing those voters.
BC United's leader has since vowed to keep learning materials age appropriate.
That's the biggest complaint that most parents have. So while I can't speak to that specific issue, I can tell you that there are legitimate concerns out there.
While BC's premier calls it a political move that takes attention away from more important issues.
To have culture war distractions, frankly, and people trying their best to drive wedges between British Columbians is not something we should tolerate here.
This teen novel, a symbol of a shift at the BC legislature, which now has 4 parties vying for power. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.